been missing your burgers.
Today we just made for the new one, so we can eat.
Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagvatam, Grantharaj ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. So it looks like I received homework from Samart, Agastya, and Agastya, Samart, Shritan. Well, I didn't read the homeworks from yesterday. Let's see. But it should be for the 16th. So on the 16th. Okay. So let's start with Shritan. Hare Krishna. The second is coming up. Oh, it's not opening, Shritan. If you're there, Shritan, send it to me again. It's not opening. Okay, let's take a look at Samart. Okay, this was Samart's yesterday homework. Okay, let's see what he writes. Read Bhagavad-Gita 245. Explain how it relates to the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.19, and explain what was the illusion or misconception of the Yamadutas, and explain what is the real religious principle. Very good, Samart. Okay. Bhagavad-Gita 2.45 gives us a summary of the subject matter of Vedas and their purpose. It also describes the fifth Veda, Bhagavad-Gita, which establishes the real religious principle, which is discussed in 6.3.19. Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. The Karma Kanda section gives us the process of how to attain peace and success in the material world, even though the purpose of the Vedas is to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Many people miss that point and promote Vedas to attain fruitive results like better sense gratification in heavenly planets. These people are called Vedavada Ratas. Due to this, they are eternally bound in the cycle of birth and death, even though they follow the Vedas. Very good. In the same verse, Bhagavad-Gita 2:45, the real religious principle is also discussed. For them, this is quote, for them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom, advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma-Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad-Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn to tolerate in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of the Lord. Very nice. Okay? Those are quotes, but beautiful quote by Prabhupada. Now, Samart continues. The Yamadutas were confused because they thought that the real religious principle was in Vedic literature. They did not know that Vedas mainly deal with material prosperity, but with the goal of slowly rising to the transcendental platform. They thought that according to Vedas, Ajamil did sins and he needed to be punished, but they did not know that the chanting of the holy name can eradicate all the sins. They did not know what and who can set the real religious principle. Very good, Samart. The purpose of the Karma-Kanda section of the Vedas is to elevate to the platform of knowing Krishna. The same point is explained in Bhagavad-Gita 15:15. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. If one does not know this principle, he is called a Vedavada Rata. What's the principle? That Krishna is the goal of all Vedic knowledge. In Srimad Bhagvatam 6.3.19, Srila Prabhupada states, real religious principles are nishtraigunya, above the three modes of material nature or transcendental. The real religious principle is established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita 18:66. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. That is the real religious principle everyone should follow. But the real problem is, even though one follows the Vedic scriptures, one may not know the transcendental principle. Even demigods and great rishis cannot find out what the real religious principle is, what to speak of humans and demons. This is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles, nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, vidyadharas and charanas. This transcendental religious principle must be understood from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly or from his special representatives only. So, very good, Samart. Thank you very much. Well done. Okay, Shri Tan Prabhu. Let's see if this opens now. Again, it's not opening, Shritan. Okay, let's go to Agastya. If you can send me your homework again, Shritan, it'd be very good. Agastya Prabhu. Okay, it's not opening also. I wonder why, I don't know. It says no connection. So let's see if the internet is... Okay. They're not opening. I'm not sure why. Let's see, Augusta's homework didn't open. Well, let's see if Advidya's may open. That's not opening also. Wow. Mystery today. Nothing is opening properly. Okay, then if we can't open, we will go on. Okay, let's see. Shritan again. Let's see if it'll open. No, I'm sorry, it's not opening. Okay, so maybe you want to send me again your homework. Okay, so we'll go on to the next verse. That is Canto 6, Chapter 3, Text 20 and 21. Now this is a very, very famous verse, number 20. 19 also is a very famous verse. Okay, so 20 says, Swayambhur Narada Sambhu, Kumara Kapilo Manu, Pralado Janaka Bhismo, Vaya Sakir Vayam. So, Lord Brahma, Bhagavan, Narada, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaja, Janaka Maharaja, Grandfather Bhisma, Bali Maharaja, Sukadev Goswami, and I myself, meaning Yamaraj, know the real religious principle. My dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home back to Godhead. This is a verse that you should think about. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, in Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna refers to Bhagavata Dharma as the most confidential religious principle, Sarva Guyatamam, Guyad Guyataram. Krishna says to Arjuna, because you are my very dear friend, I am explaining to you the most confidential religion. Sarvadharman pritya jamami kam saranam vraja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. One may ask, if this principle is very rarely understood, what is the use of it? In answer, Yamaraj states herein that this religious principle is understandable if one follows the parampara system of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, and the other standard authorities. There are 4 lines of disciplic succession, one from Lord Brahma, one from Lord Shiva, one from Lakshmi and the goddess of fortune, and one from the Kumaras. The disciplic succession from Lord Brahma is called Brahma Sampradaya. The succession from Lord Shiva, Sambhu, is called the Rudra Sampradaya. The one from the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Ji, is called the Shri Sampradaya, and the one from the Kumaras is called the Kumara Sampradaya. One must take shelter of one of these 4 sampradayas in order to understand the most confidential religious system. In the Padma Purana it is said, Sampradaya vihina ye mantras te nisfala mata. If one does not follow the 4 recognized disciplic successions, his mantra or initiation is useless. In the present day, there are many apasampradayas, or sampradayas which are not bona fide, which have no link to authorities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Kumaras, or Lakshmi. People are misguided by such sampradayas. The Shastras say that being initiated in such a sampradaya is a useless waste of time, for it will never enable one to understand the real religious principles. Wow. That's a pretty strong statement by Prabhupada, and it's a correct statement. He's not exaggerating anything. One must be in a bona fide sampradaya. Just because someone says, well, I'm in a sampradaya, but if it doesn't relate back to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Kumaras, or Lakshmi Devi, then it's not a bona fide sampradaya. Okay, so let's go to the next verse. Itavan eva loke smin pumsam dharma parasmita bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama grahanadibihi. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Very important verse also. And this is Yamaraj speaking, so you can tell he's a real Mahajan, or great authority in Krishna consciousness. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in the previous verse, Dharmam Bhagavatam. Real religious principles are Bhagavata Dharma. The principles described in Srimad Bhagvatam itself or in Bhagavad-Gita, the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam. What are these principles? The Bhagavatam says, Dharma projita kaitavotra. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are no cheating religious systems. Everything in the Bhagavatam is directly connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam further says, Savai Pumsa, Palo Dharmo Yato Bhaktira Hoksije. The supreme religion is that which teaches its followers how to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the reach of experimental knowledge. Such a religious system begins with Tan Nama Grahana, chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam. After chanting the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy, one gradually sees the form of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, and the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This way, one fully understands the situation of the personality of Godhead. One can come to this understanding of the Lord, how he descends into the material world, how he takes his birth, and what activities he performs. But one can know this only by executing devotional service. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Simply by devotional service, one can understand everything about the Supreme Lord. if one fortunately understands the Supreme Lord in this way, the result is tyakva deham punarjanma, 90. After giving up this material body, he no longer has to take birth in the material world. Instead, he returns home, back to Godhead. That is the ultimate perfection. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita 8:15, Mam upetya punarjanma, dukalayama sasvatam, na punuvanti mahatmanaha, samsiddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Very beautiful verse and purport. And so this verse, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvata tatomam tatvato gyatva vishteta anantaram. Okay, that verse is very important also. That is verse number 60, number 54, 55. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service, and when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter the kingdom of God. So that's Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3. 22. And then it says, simply by devotional service one can understand everything about the Supreme Lord. If one fortunately understands the Supreme Lord in this way, the result is tyakva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjuna. Giving up his material body, he no longer has to take birth in the material world. Instead, he returns home back to Godhead. That is the ultimate perfection. So, if I'm not mistaken, that is 4th chapter, 9th verse. Let's take a look. 4th chapter, 9th verse, yes. So, that is Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.22 again. And then it quotes Mamupeti Punarjanman Dukalayama Sasvatam. Napunuvanti Mahatmanaha Samsiddhim Paramamigata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Okay, so these are all very good verses that Prabhupada puts together to explain Bhagavad Dharma, or transcendental Krishna consciousness, not mixed with the modes of material nature. 6.3.22. Okay, so then now I just received Shritan's homework, so let's go and read. This is Shritan's homework for today. I hope it opens, Shritan. Yes, good. Oh, well, I guess it was yesterday's. Okay, so read Bhagavad-Gita 2.45, explain how it relates to the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.19, and explain what was the illusion or misconception of Yamadutas, and explain what is the real religious principle. Okay. And Shritan writes, the Yamadutas used a verse which says, whatever in the Vedas is religion, but they do not know that it is not transcendental. The real religion is Niskray Gunya. This is the transcendental mode of goodness. The word Nistraygunya is also mentioned in the verse 2.45. So does it have to do with this verse? In this verse, Arjuna is asked by Krishna to lift himself above the three modes of material nature. A quality mentioned in this verse, and that is to be free. A quality is mentioned in this verse, and that is to be free from the dualities of gain and stability. In the purport of this verse, we see that Prabhupada says that these actions within the modes of material cause bondage, within the modes of material nature cause bondage to the material world. The goal is to escape this material world for a yogi. Therefore, the Yamadutas with this statement are incorrect. Prabhupada, in the purport to Srimad Bhagvatam 6.2.19, quotes a verse from the Bhagavad-Gita 1866. This verse states the real religious principle. This nistrigunya, or rising above the modes of material nature, is to abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto Him, meaning Krishna, and He, or Krishna, will deliver you from sinful reactions. We know that sinful reactions come from fruitive work done wrongly, and are in the three modes of material nature which cause bondage. We know that this is the real religious principle because in religion, everyone because it liberates one from this material bondage. Another reason another reason we know is true, and that is the Vedas. By the Veda-Vadaratas let's see, you mixed this up a little bit. Another reason we know this is true is that Krishna is transcendental. He cannot be understood from the Vedas by the Veda-Vadarata, and this is confirmed from Brahma himself in Brahma Samhita verse 7. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you, Shritan. And very glad you did the homework. Let's see what's next here. Okay, so let's continue in our lesson today. Now we're in verse 23. My dear servants, who are as good as my sons, just see how glorious is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The greatly sinful Ajamila chanted only to call his son, not knowing that he was chanting the Lord's holy name. Nevertheless, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, he remembered Narayana, and thus he was immediately saved from the ropes of death. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There is no need to conduct research into the significance of the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The history of Ajamila is sufficient proof of the power of the Lord's holy name, Srila Prabhupada, and the exalted position of a person who chants the holy name incessantly. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatir Anyata. In this age of Kali, no one can perform all the ritualistic ceremonies for becoming liberated. That is extremely difficult. Therefore, all the Shastras and all the Acharyas have recommended that in this age one chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this is called Yuga Dharma, recommended for this age. Now, here's the problem. We're going through so much trouble reading Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam. The students, are going through so much trouble doing homework and being present to hear the class every Saturday and Sunday. What if I said that the goal of all this is that you can become a perfect devotee in this lifetime. Well, that's not a shocking statement. That's the purpose. But what is shocking is if you actually do that, you become free from the influence of time, modes of material nature, the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, and you become free from illusion, anger, envy, jealousy, and the lust, greed, madness, illusion. You become free of all this. That is shocking, because most of the population, if not almost everyone in the world, is subject to those things. So that means you would become one of the most special people in the whole world. And it's a fact. There are very few genuine devotees in this whole world. So, is that a desirable goal? Well, there's a purport in Bhagavad-Gita that's very interesting. Let me read that. It's in the 3rd chapter. And it says that it says that Krishna consciousness and sense gratification do not go well together. Now, what is sense gratification? Anything that makes you forget Krishna. Anything that makes you forget Krishna. So that could include computer games, movies, mundane novels, and material education, and bad association with people in the modes of under the influence of the modes of nature, and anything that makes you forget Krishna is Maya. So, I know some of you are very fun. Some of you are very attached to computer games. They are actually, first of all, made by demons. I knew someone who made it earn a living making computer games. That person was a real demon, had no interest at all in Krishna consciousness, and was just a vishaya, a sense gratifier. Now, if you have a pot of rice and you want to know if the rice is done or not, you just take one rice and you squeeze it. And if it's soft, that's a good indication that the whole pot of rice is ready to eat. It's always difficult to eat rice that is still hard because it hasn't been cooked properly. So in the same way, I know one person who makes computer games, makes a living doing it, and they're actually a horrible person in the sense that they're only interested in sense gratification. They might talk nice, they might dress nicely, they have a nice car, a nice house, but their whole life is dedicated to sense gratification. So, one thing is to know something theoretically, and the other thing is to know something practically. So without practical realization, theoretical understanding is not very useful. It's better than nothing, but it will not really save you if you only have theoretical knowledge. You have to have practical, realized knowledge. And that means that you're so knowledgeable that you know not to be tempted by sense gratification, or not to let anything take your mind away from Krishna in this lifetime. Now someone can say, oh look, I'm still young. I mean, you're an old guy, Mr. Harivilas, but we're still young, and you were young too, and you were young. Did you try and become a pure devotee? Well, I didn't try until I graduated college, which was when I was 22. But since that time, I have tried to always be a devotee. And Prabhupada says, in the 5th chapter, 22nd verse, 21st verse, it says, the highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell. And a materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul. So this Krishna consciousness, the real goal is to help you be liberated from the illusory pursuits in the material world, to understand that material knowledge, material goals are all basically taking you away from Krishna. Therefore, if you, from an early age, like Narada Muni, are interested only in spiritual knowledge and spiritual association. Well, look what happened to Narada Muni. His mother was poor. Narada had no education, but just by associating with pure devotees for a couple of months, for 4 months actually, he became a pure devotee and spent the rest of his life chanting Hare Krishna. And in the next millennium, he became Narada Muni, transcendental spaceman. He doesn't need a rocket. He doesn't need an airplane. He can fly anywhere in the universe. And he can even go to the spiritual universe and talk with Narayana if he wants to. So this is what your potential is. If you could do something like Narada Muni, you would be the most famous person in this world today. And it's possible to do it. If Narada did it, you can do it also. So this is real life. This is real knowledge. This is the real purpose why you have a human body. So anything that takes your mind away from this purpose is Maya. It can be a video game. It can be it could be a math test. It could be social studies. It could be bad association. See, now, bad association, someone can say, well, wait a minute, I only associate with devotees. Okay, but if those devotees are not strictly following this principle of everything should be done for the pleasure of Krishna, then they are bad association. You have to understand that. It doesn't matter they are devotee. Devotee means they're always interested in hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. Archanam, worshipping the Lord. Archanam, Vandanam, always praying to the Lord. Sakyam, making friendship with the Lord. Atmanivedanam, surrendering everything to the Lord. That's a devotee. So that's the type of person you want to associate with. Now, you can say, well, my friends, sometimes they're devotees and sometimes they're doing nonsense. And the nonsense seems attractive to me. You know, I want to be part of the group. Well, that is called peer pressure. Because they're weak devotees, they're bringing you down to their level of weakness. And you should always respect devotees, whether they're weak devotees or strong devotees, but you should avoid the association of devotees who are weak in their following of sadhana bhakti, rules and regulations, because you will end up like them through association. But if you remain strong, then there's a possibility for them to improve their following of the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness and be elevated. But if you come under, you can give up or go into a very, very low level of Krishna consciousness and basically, as they say in French, pédaler dans la choucroute, which means to walk in a big pile of mushy cabbage, cooked mushy cabbage. In other words, you don't really go anywhere. You just lifting your legs up and putting them down, like as if you're on a static bicycle, because it's all slippery goo. So that's what will happen to you by associating with devotees who are not very advanced. You end up going down to their level. But if you associate with devotees who are highly advanced, then you have a chance to go up spiritually. And associate eventually with people like Narada Muni and be able to control the forces of nature by constant engagement in devotional service. Now, devotional service is happy. It's happy life. It's clean life. It's active life. It's full of knowledge. That's what we should be, real knowledge, spiritual knowledge. That is what we should be aiming for every day, all the time. If we had a good group of boys and girls who realize this is the real purpose of life, and we're not going to give it up because of bad association. We're going to avoid all that bad association and practice Krishna consciousness, life of chanting, dancing, feasting, happy life, and taking care of cows and growing vegetables and becoming an expert at doing them, and also, associating with adults who are inspiring us by their examples of pure devotion or complete dedicated devotion to Krishna. So, unless we come to this type of understanding, we will become like everybody else, a rishayi, a sense gratifier, and will become conditioned by the modes of material nature, and thus our independence will be completely undermined, and we will basically waste all this valuable time we have in life on mundane things that lead to nothing. They lead to zero. You might think, oh, I'm very successful now, I have money, I have this, I have that. All that will be lost. So it's not really solid, it's not really success. Success is when you've developed actual love for Krishna. Prema Pumartha Mahan. Okay, so the next verse, it's a very long purport, and your homework is to read Canto 6, Chapter 3, verse 24, very carefully, and answer the following questions. I'm going to read it real quickly now with you, and then I'm going to tell you what the questions are. Therefore, it should be understood that one is easily relieved from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of the Lord and chanting of his qualities and activities. This is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. Even if one chants the holy name of the Lord with improper pronunciation, he will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offenses. Ajamila, for example, was extremely sinful, but while dying, he merely chanted the holy name, and although calling his son, he achieved complete liberation because he remembered the name of Narayana. So this is a really substantial verse, and it says, this is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. What is that? Well, one can easily achieve relief from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And also chanting the glories of his qualities and activities or pastimes. And this is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. Now you see, the coronavirus is a sinful reaction. Car accidents are sinful reactions. Financial problems are sinful reactions. And health problems are sinful reactions. Legal problems are sinful reactions. Once there was a young boy, and when he became like 13, 14, 15, 16, he got into a fight with his father. And he stopped following his father's instructions. Now, the father made a mistake. He became angry with the boy and decided to give him a good spanking or beating. He was like 16. So he took off his belt and beat him really bad. And then after beating him really bad, he carried him to the boy's into the house, to the boy's bedroom, put him on his bed, tried to comfort him a little bit, and then he went to sleep in his own room. And the boy was in the bed alone, and he was very, very hurt by the beating and very upset, really angry at his father. And when he got a little bit better in a day or two, late at night, he ran away. And he had a horse, and he saddled the horse and rode away. And, he didn't have anything. He didn't have any money. And so he decided to say goodbye to a couple of his friends. And he rode his horse to one friend's house and made some noise. And the friend woke up, and he looked out his window and said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I'm leaving." He said, "Why?" He said, "I had a fight with my dad. I don't like him anymore. I'm just going to leave and be free." And then the friend said, "Oh, I wish I could come with you." He said, "Well, you can if you want." He said, so the friend said, "I'm going to do it." And he ran down, he got out, he climbed through the window and jumped down on the ground, and he also saddled the horse and started riding with his friend. And then both of them went to see a third friend, and they all somehow woke him up. It was very, very late, and everybody else was sleeping. And he said, "What is it?" And they said, "We're going to be free. We're going to run away." And the friend said, "Oh, I wish I could come with you." And they said, "You can. Just jump down, go to the stable, and put the saddle on your horse, and we'll all go together." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to come too. I want to run away too." So all three ran away, and they were riding their horses. And they went far, far away in a day or two, and they were extremely hungry. So they tried to stop in different places and ask people if they would give them food, and no one would give them anything. And everyone said, "You get away from here. You look very suspicious. You're not clean." They've been riding hard on their horses. So they end up going into a small town, and they're giving some water to their horses, and they're complaining that they're really hungry. There's nothing to eat. And the sheriff of that little town comes over and says, "Who are you? You guys are strangers. What are you doing here?" And they almost get in a fight with the sheriff. They're talking back to him, and he gets really upset with them But he warns them, you better leave right away. Don't come back here. So then the sheriff goes back into his office, and the boys are really disturbed. And one of the boys said, hey, there's a bank over there, and I got a pistol, a gun. Let's go rob the bank. And the other boy said, no, don't do that. We'll get in trouble. He says, no, we'll get away really quick. So they go to the bank. He pulls out a gun, and he tells the teller behind in the bank, he said, give me all your money. Anyway, somehow or other, they get the money, but the teller tries to stop them, and they shoot the teller and kill him. And they run out, they get on their horses, and they have some money, and the sheriff and other people start riding after them, and now they're being chased, but somehow or other they get away. And this is the beginning of their miserable life. They become professional bank robbers, and they kill people, and eventually every one of them is killed. So this is what happens when boys and girls revolt against their parents. They begin this they get on this slippery slope going down, down, down. Any good things that they learn, they forget, and they're just interested in making money and having sense gratification, even if it's done illegally. So we should be very careful of how we're growing up, and especially when one attains puberty. Puberty is around 12, 13, 14 years old, where you're no longer a baby or a child. You become an adult at that point. Even though you're still relatively young, but you become an adult. Girls become like women, and boys also, they become, their voice changes, their body gets bigger, and so forth. So, this Krishna consciousness is not for little kids only, it's for everybody, and especially to help them overcome the dangers of puberty when, according to the laws of karma, your unfinished desires from previous life are awakened. And you become overwhelmed with all kinds of strange desires that you didn't have before, and they're coming from your previous life. So this verse says, therefore, it should be understood that one is easily relieved from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of the Lord and chanting of his qualities and activities. This is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. Even if one chants the holy name of the Lord with improper pronunciation, he will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offenses. Ajamila, for example, was extremely sinful, but while dying, he merely chanted the holy name, and although calling his son, he achieved complete liberation because he remembered the name of Narayana. Okay, so I want you to read this verse and purport and make a list, make an outline of all the points made in this verse and this purport. And that's your homework for next Saturday. Are there any questions? And you can also use points from the previous verses leading up to this verse. So we covered today verses, Canto 6, Chapter 3, verse 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Any questions? Okay, we will end the class right now. Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute. For today, let me see if it opens. Yeah, it opened. No, this was, okay, this was yesterday's homework. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.